Hello and welcome to episode 184 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is May 1st, 2023. And today I'm wearing a shawl that I picked because it goes with the jacket, but when I was preparing the episode I realized one strand of this shawl is yarn from the same company as last week's shawl. So it's 100 Farbspiele, 100 colors play, whatever. But with this shawl, I held it double with one strand of mohair silk. And that certainly dampens the colors a bit. So I think I used either a black or a dark blue mohair yarn. And the cotton yarn, the 100 Farbspiele yarn, went from blue through purple to almost black, I think, or very dark blue, purple, something. So you can still see the color gradient, but because I used the same mohair yarn throughout, the difference isn't quite as big. The color changes are sort of muted. And the pattern that I used is loosely based on a shawl pattern called, it's a German play on words, I think. It was supposed to be called Muster Mix. So it's a mix of patterns, but I think, I don't know if it was by mistake or by design that she called it Muster Nixe. So gives it a different sound. But I think she starts off with a garter stitch with a few stitches, and then you keep increasing on one side and you don't increase on the other side, and then you go into a seat stitch pattern. And I think from there on she used different patterns than I used, and I just made up patterns knit out of knits and pearls. So after I did the knit one purl one, I did a like knit two purl two, and then I would how do you say that? It's like a spiral sock pattern. And yeah, it's not a spiral because it's not round, but it's something like that. And then I did something with knit 3 and purl 3, and then knit 4, purl 4, I put in a lace pattern. And then with the knit 5 and purl 5, I did like triangles. It's difficult to see with this dark yarn. And then I did something with knit 6 and purl 6. Can't remember what I did there. And then I went back to the knit 2 purl 2 like a big seat stitch. So I did the same for 2 rows, and then I completely switched between the knits and purls. And then I went back to a normal seat stitch, and the last few rows I did garter stitch again. So it's like a pattern sampler, and it's just this huge triangle by knitting one edge straight and increasing on the other edge. And then when you get there, you just cast off, and then you have this triangle. Yeah, and the jacket that I'm wearing is, it was originally the Carnaby crochet along, and it was supposed to be a pullover, and I did a pullover with sock yarn and black and neon colors, but because I had to wait for the next bit of the pattern to be released in the next magazine, I decided to start another one in blue colors, and I used a pure cotton yarn. And once I had done all the pieces, I decided to only attach the pieces on one side, and the other side I left open as a cardigan. And even though I've worn this before, there is something new, and that's because I attached the buttons. I only sewed them on last weekend, so now it sort of looks like a pullover, but I can open the buttons and I can wear it as a cardigan, and I'm very happy with that. These are very simple, fairly cheap buttons that I got somewhere, but I thought the colors go together nicely, and it's just this bit of shimmer. Because there's so many colors and so many patterns in the cardigan, I wanted simple buttons, and because I never made buttonholes, they had to be small, so I can just push them in between the double crochets or the trebles, depending on where you are. Yeah, So that's what I'm wearing today. Then on to finished objects. I have 2 finished objects and only 1 new cast on. Quite happy with myself. I am still trying to keep that going, to cast on fewer stitches than I finish. And I'm also thinking of, or trying to finish some of the long-term whips that I'm still carrying around. They're still on the list underneath the video, and I think that list should get a bit shorter. So I will, especially during the holidays, I will try and work on some of those long-term projects and maybe get them finished in the near future, or at least worked on. Some of them I keep carrying around as whips and I never work on them. Okay, so the first finished object I'm going to show you was last year's Christmas cast on. So on December 25th, I cast on a blue cardigan out of Noro silk garden yarn that my sister had given to me partly as a Christmas present and partly as a birthday present years ago. And I finished it. So that's not a really big surprise. As for the collar, I just kept knit. I did one more decrease round, as I said, or row. So there was no more pattern left. And instead of just decreasing at the raglan lines and at the front, I decreased the same rate throughout the back, which is the only part that wasn't raglan shaping, because the sleeve stitches were sort of have all disappeared now. And then I just kept knitting, and I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's because of the V-neck. There were not enough stitches, and maybe I could have decreased stitches to make it come forward a little bit. But I'm thinking of trying to block the collar a bit wider, so I made sure it's a loose cast off. So I can pull it to the front a little bit, like so. And yeah, but I couldn't really think of a way of doing it differently. So I decided to keep it that way, wash the cardigan, see what it looks like then. And then maybe I'll go back and change something, but probably I won't. So I finished that, I cast off, I sewed in all the ends, and I sewed on buttons. And these are old buttons that I bought at a yarn festival, and there was an old couple who was selling lots and lots and lots of buttons that he had collected throughout his life, and he says these are real glass buttons out from the time when people used to make buttons out of glass because they didn't have plastic the way we have it now. So I really like the way they look. So it's a sort of unusual shape, and because they're just clear glass, they just go with every color. And this cardigan is, for my taste, it's fairly simple. It's just one color. It's a fairly simple pattern, so I thought the buttons can be a bit different and a bit visible. So again, I didn't knit any button holes, but I'm just pushing the buttons through the holes in the pattern, and I'm really happy with that. I think that looks really nice. The glass buttons, they're fairly small, so they're not heavy. I don't feel like they're pulling on my jacket, and so it falls over like this a little bit, but I hope that'll be better once it's been washed, and also when I'm wearing it, when I'm sort of inside and there's something pressing in against from the inside, I hope this will sit a little nicer. But I'm hoping to be wearing this cardigan in the first episode that I will do after my holidays. So then you should be able to see what it looks like washed and whether or not I've changed the collar, and then you'll see how the button band sits on me. So that's finished object number 1, and finished object number 2 are the Meandersocks that I knit for my sister. That's a Sock Madness bonus pattern from this year, so we didn't have to knit it, but I wanted to knit it because I really like it, and my sister picked the yarn. She liked this color a lot, so she has lots of grey clothes, but she likes a touch of light blue as well. So, and if it was up to her, I wouldn't have needed to knit any pattern, but that's too boring for me. So I'm really happy to put a nice pattern in, and she will just enjoy wearing them. Yeah, so that's opal yarn out of the country series, the newest series at the moment, and a very beautiful pattern. And finished. Yeah, so that are my 2 finished objects. Then on to works in progress, and I'll continue as usual with the socks. And as there weren't any Sock Madness socks to knit last week, I managed to knit on all the projects that I am sort of currently actually working on. So there are more projects on my list, but I haven't worked on those in a long time, so I have to get them into rotation again. But all the other ones that I was actually working on, I have worked on. And yeah, the oldest sock now on the needle, I think, is the pink lace sock. That's a sock that I cast on because I got this beautiful book with lace patterns. Yeah, and this is the second sock. So of course this is the oldest sock project I have on the needle. Didn't bring the finished sock, so can't show you that at the moment. But it has this beautiful lace and cable pattern on the front. The back has this fairly simple rip pattern, and I managed to knit half the heel. So that's where I stopped. Then I'll have to finish the heel, knit the foot, and yeah, this is a 6-ply sock yarn. It's this neon pink by Opal, so I have fewer stitches than with the normal thin sock yarn, so they work up fairly quickly. It's just that the pattern, I do have to look at the pattern all the time, so that slows me down a little bit, but that's okay. I enjoy looking at patterns. I enjoy knitting lace patterns. And that's a good thing, because the next sock also has a lace pattern, and it's another pattern from the same book, and I'm knitting that sock as part of the pattern battle in the Opal Abo Ravelry group. If you want to have a look at that, the German word is Musterschlacht. That's where you can find all the socks knit out of this colorway. And I finished knitting the leg of the sock, and because this is a fairly elaborate lace pattern, I wouldn't change the length. I could have done half, I think. I think it repeats once, but I think the length is quite nice. I know this, with this colorful yarn, it's a bit harder to see than with the solid color for the other sock, but I don't mind. This one has a very simple rip pattern on the back. Yeah, and now I have to knit the heel, and I think it's another heel flap. Oh no, I think this is a heel flap and gusset pattern, whereas this is a short row heel. Yeah, so quite happy with that as well. And the third sock that I have on the needles at the moment is another pair of film. Oh, before I talk about that, I realized when I was holding this yesterday, I realized that the row gauge for the pattern is different than for the rip pattern. And I don't really care about row gauge as a rule, because most of the time you can just knit to so many centimeters, but the stitch count is important. So I know that with the lace pattern, you usually need fewer stitches. With a cable pattern, you need more stitches. So if you combine the two, you sort of come out with the normal stitch count that you expect. But I was quite surprised to see that the row gauge is quite a bit shorter on the pattern than on the rip pattern. For a sock, that's quite nice to have on the front, because sort of the front of the socks has a shorter way to go than the back side of the sock. So basically with this pattern, you could do a shorter heel because this bit is longer anyway. But I'll knit the heel that's in the book. I just wanted to show you. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, it's just something I don't think about very often. Okay, now to my film reel socks that I have on the needle. It's another colorway from the Cats and Dogs series by Opal, and it's this beautiful blue turquoise colorway, and I finished the heel, and I'm about to start the next film reel. So there is light blue in the calf, then we had a very dark film, and then this is very interesting. It's half dark and half light. I really enjoyed the color change in the middle of the film, and we have a light heel, and then there'll be 2 more film reels for the foot, and then I can do the toe. And then I'll definitely start the next sock with the dark bit, so we'll probably get a dark ribbing and a dark toe and some more light films in between. So these are all the socks I'm working on at the moment. Then the other pattern or the other project that I'm knitting on double pointed needles are the Mitts About You mittens by Nathan Taylor, the Sockomatician, and you can wear them inside out and upside down and whatever. And I only know that these are inside out because I started with the colors in this orientation, and I started with a bigger needle, so this end is wider than this. So basically I would wear them this way so that this comes up to my arm. I will not be wearing them at all. I'm going to give them away, and the recipient, I met her last weekend and she liked them, approved of them. So once I finish them, I'll send them to her. So that's the first one that you already know. I finally took the time to cast on the second, and I've even finished the thumb hole. So I decided to do exactly the same as with the first. So I cast on with the bigger needles. I did the first 10 rounds with the bigger needles. So both the mitts are a bit wider down this end. Then I did the thumb hole, and now I've changed the color orientation, so to say, and I will make the same mistake or design feature for casting off. So I'll try and remember to reverse the colors for the bind off. The only thing that I have not repeated are the mistakes that I did within the pattern. So after I changed the colors, I managed to get some stitches wrong. So I did not do that with the second one. I think I did manage to do a different mistake. I'm just checking. So I'm not sorry for hitting that. I'm not 100% sure whether I'm doing the stitches next to the thumb hole correctly, so that this side looks quite okay. This side doesn't really look perfect. And I think it's a bit worse on this one. I don't know why. So with this one, this side kind of looks okay, looks a bit loose there. But this looks as if I did something wrong. So I must have done the same thing both times I got there. So I don't mind. The recipient said she doesn't mind, so that's okay. But it means I have to practice a little more. Yeah, but really enjoy knitting them. This is the Baby Alpaka by Hansa Farm, DK weight. It's so soft anyway, but if you knit it up with in brioche pattern, it's just so thick and soft and yummy, and yeah, I just love it. And I really want to get these finished because I can't wait to start the next project from the Sockomatician's double knit brioche book. And I will probably, even though we're going into summer, but I really want to knit the cuff muff double ender. That's one of my favorite projects in the book, and that would finally let me combine the double knitting and the double knit brioche, and I will have a pattern in double knit brioche so I can practice the decreases and increases. Should be really exciting. Okay, but first I will finish the Mitts About You. So what's next? The dinosaur skeleton loop scarf. That's something I really do want to get done. And I finished the third dinosaur. So now we have 3 dinosaurs racing after one another. And again, I finished knitting the dinosaur, and again I didn't bring the other 2, and I couldn't remember how many rows of one just solid color I knit on top of the dinosaur's head, so I couldn't finish the square, but that's okay. So this is the dark blue dinosaur on the light blue background, and this is the other side. And so now with the 3 colors, I have every color combination that's possible. And once I've cast this off, I can sew them together. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do the sewing yet, so that should be exciting. But I'm pretty sure that I will have that finished next time I record a proper episode, because as I mentioned it today, but it will be in 3 weeks' time. So next Monday you will hopefully, haven't done the translation yet, but I want to release the tutorial video for the crochet cardigan that I'm going to talk about later. And then the week after that there will be no video, and after that I'll be back from a holiday, and then pretty sure this should be finished. Okay, and the other cowl that I'm knitting at the moment is the preview knit that I'm doing for Yuki Knits, and I've knit those hexagons, and I've now sewn the first 3 together. I'm not 100% sure I want to keep them in this order, but for the preview knit, I was supposed to not only knit a few hexagons, but also sew them together to see how that works. I'm really happy with how the seaming worked. I think it looks okay. It feels okay. It's a very, how do you say? It's not bulky. What's the opposite of bulky? So it lies really flat, so you can't really feel the seam or see it very clearly. Really happy with that. The thing is that I'm so excited by how different the hexagons look that I now really want to be able to lay out the design once I finished all the motifs. And so maybe this will fit in, and if it doesn't, I'll just undo the seams and try out again. So these are the hexagons that you already know, and the one that I managed to knit last week is this one. And I don't know how obvious it is on screen, but this is a different yarn. So this is the yarn that I did all the other motifs out of so far, and this is the other yarn. I think the colors go together really nicely, especially if I do hold the light colors together. But this is a single ply yarn, and this is a plied yarn. Probably a 4-ply yarn, but yeah. So this is my main yarn from Lang Yarns. It's on my Ravelry page what it's called exactly, and I've started the next hexagon. Haven't got really far, and this is the other yarn. This is Ferner Wolle. So this is a 4-ply sock yarn, but I felt that the colors go together really well. So there's no green in this, but I think all the other colors, or all the colors that are in here, are also in here. So I felt that should work out really well. In the beginning, I thought I would get 10 hexagons out of this ball of yarn, but it seems I'm using just a little more than 10 grams for the hexagon, so I'll probably only get 9 out of this. So with the one that I've already knit from this, I'll have at least 10 to put together as a cowl, but I might even do 2 more. So I have 12, and I can make the cowl a bit longer. And I'm just thinking I probably have something left over after I knit 9. I could start the 10th with this and finish it with this. That should be fun as well. So really still excited about this project. The pattern will probably be released either mid-May or end of May, but I've prepared the link to her pattern page. So as soon as the pattern becomes available, you will see the link on my pattern page. And yeah, as soon as I know that the pattern has been released, I'll let you know. So maybe when I'm back from holiday, it will be there. And if not, I'll just let you know as soon as I know. So that's that. Then the pullover. I did knit on the cashmere pullover. And this is the cashmere by Hansa Farm as well. I'm using the black as my main color. And this is still my first 25-gram ball of yarn. With the black, this is the second. And I've almost finished the color work. So I've put it on a long cable to try it on. I'm really happy with the size, and I kept it on the long needle because I thought it'll be easier to show you the pattern. So this is what it looks like. It's a fairly simple pattern, nothing really complicated. So there'll be, I just did 2 rounds just in black, then there'll be 1 more round with the grey, then 2 more black and another one with the grey, and then the color work will be done. As per pattern, you should knit, I think, several rows, centimeters, inches, whatever, just in black, and then add the short rows and then split for the sleeves and the front and back. For me, because I probably knit a size too big, I don't know. It comes down fairly low already. So I think as soon as I finish the color work, I will do the short rows. Then I will try it on. If I think I need a bit more length, I can add rows then. But I will probably just split for the arms and fronts and back then. And yeah, and then I will continue knitting. The top part of the pullover wasn't quite as low now, probably because I didn't pull as much, or maybe because there was just more fabric to lie there. I didn't pull it down as much, so it doesn't look too bad, but I'm still happy I did the provisional cast on, because I'm pretty sure I will do more of a edge or ribbing or collar than the pattern calls for, and I might even add some short rows on top of the pattern as well, just to make sure the pullover comes up nice and high into my neck, but not too high in the front. Yeah, but this is the my cashmere pullover out of the beautiful yokes, circular yokes, the art of circular yokes. That's what the book is called. It's linked underneath the video, and I think it's a beautiful pattern, and I'm really happy that I will that this one 25-gram ball of yarn will be enough from the light grey. I was thinking of not doing the last 2 color rounds if I had run out of yarn, but I'm quite happy I am not running out of yarn. Excuse me. What's next? The 2 shawls are next. I am working on 2 Stephen West shawls. I have worked on both, and the Pierre shawl is the one that I'm knitting out of hand-dyed Wolldackel yarn, and again I only added a few rows, but so I've done 1 more pattern row. It's probably almost invisible. Yeah, anyway, so after I recorded the video last week, I realized that if I wanted to mix up the dark and light patches in the yarn, I could start the new ball of yarn before I finished the old one. So that's what I did. So I knit 2 rows with the new ball of yarn and then 2 with the old, and that were the last 2 rows I could do with the old ball of yarn. So this is the yarn that I still have. I think, as per pattern, I'm almost done. I think I did 1 row after I did the lace pattern, and I think there's only a few more rows and then the cast off, but I am thinking of adding maybe 2 more pattern rows in the lace pattern. Yeah, just to use up a little more of the yarn, and also to have just a little more of the dark color in the yarn, because I think there's a whole lot of the light color, and I think I would like to have just a bit more of the dark at the lower edge of the shawl, and I wouldn't mind for it to be just a bit deeper. As this is a DK weight yarn, it's a really warm shawl, and if it's cold, I like my shawls to be really nice and big and wide and long. So that's that. And then the other shawl is the Fragmentation shawl. I have added in the 3rd ball of yarn. Don't think I had that last week, I don't know. But this is the yarn I'm using. It's out of the Beauty series by Opal, which is softer than their normal, usual yarn. But this is a 4-ply yarn, so this is a bit more lightweight than the other shawl. And I kept knitting on the wedge number 5. Yeah, I added quite a bit. So I still need to do quite a bit. So this is what I still need to do. And then because I'm adding stitches, it takes longer and longer to do the pattern repeats, but that's fine. And then 2 more wedges to come. So we'll see how that will come along. I'm pretty sure I can finish I do want to finish the Pierre shawl within the next 3 weeks. I'm not quite sure about this. I think as a travel project, I would probably just bring this ball of yarn so I can finish knitting that, which means I won't be able to finish the shawl, but I don't think I want to carry the extra ball of yarn, so that should be fine. So what else have we got? We still have the the alpaca lace granny square that I have added on a few rounds. I don't remember. I usually check what round I was on the week before, but this time I forgot. So yeah, I just added a few rounds. I've now done 4 repeats of the darkest grey, so there'll be 3 more rounds before this section is finished. That's when I want to wash and block it, and then I will decide what to do or how much more to crochet onto it. And one of my friends who always has lots of good ideas, she suggested I put in beads on the edge. So that made me think, and then we looked at different edgings for granny squares, and we came up with one edging that I really like, and I will probably do that. So I'll have to have a look at my beads and see if I have ones that I like with this, or maybe I will go and get some. I don't know, but that should be really fun to have just beads on the outside of this huge granny square. I'm really tempted to go for black beads. I don't know if I've ever used black beads, but if the edge has just black rounds, that should be fine. Should be fine. Okay, and then I think we've come to the last project, and that's the new crochet along I wanted to start today. So last week I told you all about her little jacket. It's always difficult to show. So she's already wearing the hexagon crochet granny square jacket that we are making. You can follow the pattern Horizon on the hobby website, or you can follow any other pattern for a hexagon cardigan like that. I decided to use opal 6-ply yarn, so it's a bit of a warmer jacket, and I'm using the exact same colors that I used for the little cardigan, but I'm using the 6-ply yarn, and I crocheted the little one out of the same colors in 4-ply yarn. So these are the 2 colors that I want to use. This is the Rainforest 17 series, and this is out of the 18 series. So they're from 2 different years, but I just love the way they look together. And I've started today, just before recording. I crocheted the first couple of rounds. So I'm doing the first bit in the red color until I've reached the width that I want my arm to be. And then when I add on to the fronts and backs, I will use the blue one. And I'll also use the blue one to crochet the sleeves together and to lengthen the sleeves and maybe lengthen the cardigan. And then it sort of depends how much yarn I have left in what color, what I'm going to do on the very edges of the cardigan. But I don't know yet, so we'll see about that. But I've just started this very simple hexagon, and basically you crochet like a granny square, but instead of doing 4 groups in the first round, you do 6 groups, and then the first round you do 6 corners, and then from there on You work as if it was a granny square. You crochet along the sides and then you make a corner. You crochet another side, another corner. But instead of having 4 corners, you have 6 corners. And right now, if I could still block this to look like a star, and it would probably lie flat because I could still pull it. But the bigger it gets, the more fabric you have, and you won't be able to lay it flat anymore. But you will be able to fold it. And once you fold the hexagon, you get something like this. And this already looks a little bit like half a cardigan, because this is the sleeve and this would be one front and this would be half the back. So that's why we have to crochet 2 hexagons, and then we can sew them together in the back. We leave the fronts open for a cardigan. You could sew the front together and have a pullover. That's okay as well. And because with crochet it's so easy to add on to all the edges, you can absolutely make this your own and crochet it absolutely to your size. So that's one of the things I really like about this pattern. And of course you can fiddle around before you sew it together, or before you start adding to the fronts and backs. You can play around and see which way you prefer the sleeve to be or the front and back to be. So that's quite fun. Okay, that was everything. I knit and crocheted last week. Next week's going to be another sock madness week, so I will concentrate on 1 pair of socks, I guess. Then I'll be on holiday for 2 weeks and knitting and crocheting just what I feel like doing. And then in 3 weeks' time, I'll be back with a proper episode and let you know what I did during the holidays and show you my sock madness socks. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!